So in this week's parsha, we learn the story of starting off with the B'chorah, and in great length, the brachas that Yaakov achieved by pretending to be Esav. And the pasuk says, "V'yev Yitzchak es Esav, v'Rivka oheves es Yaakov." Yitzchak loved Esav ki tzayed bepiv. Tagamunkalis says, number 2 on our sheet, "V'rochem Yitzchak yos Esav arei mitzedei hava ochel." So Yitzchak loved Esav because he fed him. That would seem a bit strange. Yitzchak Ovinu, Tzadik Yesod Olam. We can't even imagine or try to appreciate the tzidkes of the Oves HaKdoshim. They were greater than Malachim. So Yitzchak loved Esav because he fed him. Does it sound right? I mean, if you have an awful son and he does terrible things, but he brings you breakfast every morning, and that's why you prefer him. So, Sono kelyecho telyecho v'kashtecho v'tzei asoda v'tzudu litzayid. Yitzchak asks Esav, please go into the forest, bring me some food. And the Gemara in Beitza says, Sono kelyecho, make sure that the sakin is well prepared. It should be Shechitah ksheira. So Yitzchak eats Esav's Shechitah. We know twice in Shas at the end of Kedushin and Yom Edav Chavches Kiyom Avrom Avinu Kol HaTorah Kula Shelo Nitno Afilu Eruv Tavshilin. Shuvas Haramo says maybe only Avrom, not Yitzchak and Yaakov. We do not find in Shas only Kiyom Avraham Avinu. Maybe only he. But everybody remembers Imlovan Garti. What does Rashi say? Imlovan Garti. It's totally unreasonable. Avram, yes. Yaakov, yes. And Yitzchak, no. So we assume same applies to Yitzchak. He did what his father did. We all try to do what our fathers do. So we assume Yitzchak was Makayim Kol HaTorah Kula Shelo Nitno. There are two different interpretations in the Rishonim and in the Achronim. How do we understand Kiyam Avrom Avinu Kol HaTorah Kula Shelo Nitno Afilu Erev Tavshilin? One interpretation is Kipshutoi. The Oves HaKdoshim were Mekayim all the mitzvahs with their details, Protein v'Dikdukein. So we must assume Avrom Avinu had the Mishnah Brura, because how could you be Mekayim Erev Tavshilin without learning Siman Tov Kuf Chav Zayin with the Mishnah Brura? So do we assume Avrom Avinu had the Mishnah Brura and he remembered the Sha'ar Tzion and the Bialocha and the Mishnah Brura? Another interpretation is B'derech min hadrachim. Not in the way we are supposed to be Mekayim the mitzvahs la'achar matan Torah. When Chazal say the Oves were Mekayim all the mitzvahs is the pnimius, the ideas, the values, the ethics, the Soides HaTorah, the Shemes HaKdoshim, that is Kiyam Avrom Avinu Kol HaTorah Kulo Ad Shelo Nitno. Rosh Hashiva, I'm not used to seeing you sitting back there. Kvod HaTorah. So today's shiur is based on Derech number 1. That the Oves HaKdoshim were Mekayim all the details, and therefore the big question is, the Gemara in Kiddushin, source number 4, says Esav was a Yisrael Mumar. Source number 3, we learn in Masechet Chulin Daf Daled, Shchitas Mumar Psula. If a Mumar shechtza b'ayim, that's Nevela. Esav was a Mumar. Yitzchak performed all the mitzvahs. If somebody would say, but it was a shoygeg, Behemton shel tzadik yamein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevit lekol al yodam. Who remembers where that is in Shas? Does anybody remember? It's many times. Where is it? Is it on our sheet? No. Chulin Daf? No. Close, even closer. Yeah. Chulen Dafei, Gittin Dav Zayin, maybe you confuse Chulen with Gittin, Yevomestadik Tes. Be'emten shel tzadikim en HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe tekol el yodam, tzadikim atzman lo kol sheken. So we assume it cannot be that Yitzchak ate nevela. Chidu asked the question, Pesach Anayim and the Yismach Moshe. So the Chidu has a pilpul, and he says, maybe the answer would be Yitzchak, Esav became a Mumar at a later stage in his life. When he prepared food for Yitzchak, he wasn't a Mumar yet. That is a bit unreasonable. Esav seems to be a Mumar even before he was born. Do you remember Rashi v'yisoytzetzu abonim bekirbo? When Rivka passed Botei Knesiyos, Yankov mefarches lutzeis, and when she passed Botei Avodah Zorah, Esav mefarches lutzeis. So there was something inherent in Esav, which is soidus. We don't understand exactly what it is, but Esav probably was bad since he was born. In this week's parsha, before the brochus, before Kitzayed Bepiv, V'yivaz Esav Eza B'choyra. And once again, Rashi brings the medrash. He didn't bench. He wasn't Makayim mitzvahs. Yismach Moshe has a marvelous word. Does anybody know who was the Yismach Moshe? A Rishon or an Achron? Who was the Yismach Moshe? So our American guests, I like to challenge the boys and teach them a little about who are these Gedolim that we learned their Torah. Who was the Yismach Moshe? A Rishon or an Achron? Was he a chassid or a misnagid? What was his name? I'm sure you know. Maybe the Moshe Teitelbaum. He was the great-grandfather of the Satmar Rebbe and the Kloisenberger Rebbe. He was an unbelievable gadol. He wrote a sefer Tshuvas Heishav Moshe, which is an amazing sefer, and he was a Chassidish Rebbe. So he has a marvelous idea, and he says Esav was a Rasha. But Chazal do say he was makpid in Kvoid Av, and he had great respect for Yitzchak. Esav knew that he can't shecht for Yitzchak. So when he caught animals, he brought them to Yankov to shecht, and Yankov was the shochet. The Yismach Moshe says that the Mekabolim teach us that a real tzaddik, when he eats meat, could sense the ruchnius of the shochet. So Esav never was the shochet, Yankov was, but Yitzchak wasn't aware of that. So when Yitzchak ate Esav's shechitah, what he thought was Esav's shechitah, he felt a reach gan Eden and a tam of olam haba. So all the lashon haras that Yitzchak was told, Esav is awful, he's not medaktik mitzvahs, just made Yitzchak admire him more and more. He's a tzaddik nista. He acts as if he's a Rasha, but I eat his shechitah. So nobody could tell me who my shochet is. I know that he's a tzaddik yesod olam. And that is v'yev Yitzchak es Esav kitzayed bepiv. Yitzchak loves Esav because he is the one that feeds me. He is my shochet, and I know what a great tzaddik he is. So that's the Yismach Moshe's interpretation, which is a chiddush. So whenever I tell this pshat of the Yismach Moshe, I add on a story that I heard from my Rebbe, the Kloisenberger Rebbe. So when the Yismach Moshe was a younger man, as we could expect from a great tzaddik and a great gadol, he got up early in the morning, all the day he was in Besmedesh, he came back late at night, and they didn't live in a penthouse or in a mansion. They had one little room with a curtain in the middle of the room. One side of the curtain was the bedroom, and the other side of the curtain was the dining room and the kitchen. So when he came home, he didn't put on the light because he didn't want to disturb his wife that was sleeping. And every night she prepared a bowl of soup and a piece of meat. One day she gets up in the morning. She doesn't find the soap water that she prepared to clean the dishes and the Scotch Brite. What is a Scotch Brite in English? The shmata that you use to clean the dishes. Nowhere to be found. And suddenly she notices that he didn't touch the soup and the meat. She understood the mishap that happened yesterday night. Shari waited for him the next evening, and she asked him, "My dear husband, Moshe, how was supper yesterday night? Was it okay?" And he said, "It was great, but the meat, for some reason, I chewed and chewed, and it didn't, so I just swallowed it as is. but it was great. So I say, when could you feel the time of the shechit? When you no longer feel the time of the meat. As long as you appreciate a good steak, you can never feel who the shechit was. So these two go together. When you no longer feel the time of the meat and you're such a tzaddik that then you begin to feel the time of the shechit. So anyway, that's the Yismach Moshe. Everybody understands that derech drash. I would say a very poshet teretz. Why is a mumar posel l'shchot? Why is shchitas a posel? The Gemara says he's not a bar zvicha, and that is why shchitosoi psulo. Before Matan Torah, no one was a bar zvicha, because as long as there was no lav of nevela, no mitzvah of shchita, how could one be defined a bar zvicha? Yes, those were mekayim kol Torah kula actually need no, but that was voluntary. But as long as there is no mitzvah of zvicha, no one is a bar zvicha. And if there is a bar zvicha, there is no one that is not a bar zvicha, and all were the same. There cannot be a concept of a bar zvicha as long as there is no mitzvah of shchita, and there is no lav of nevela. And therefore, everybody was kosher l'shchita b'fnei Matan Torah. We can't disqualify a person because he's not a bar zvicha, because no one was a bar zvicha, because Adayin ha-mitzvahs lo nitnu, and therefore there was no chashash of nevela. That would be my understanding. Tshuva number 2. Most poskim maintain that a mumar oichel nevelas litei avoin is not posel l'shchita, only lahachis. We have no reason to believe that Esav was a mumar lahachis. Probably he was a mumar litei avoin, and that would be approach number 2. The other sources on our sheet deal at great length. How do we define a mumar bezman hazeh? So there's an entire spectrum of halachas which in Shulchan Aruch are macholei akum. Chazal wanted to build moats between Jews and non-Jews. We're not supposed to mingle with them. Yes, we could respect them, we could work together, but don't become too friendly with them. And that's why Chazal asked, Bishul akum, Pas akum, Yein akum, Stam Yeinam, even though we have no reason to be Choshesh Lenesech, they're not Menasech Yayin, Goyim, they're not religious at all, they're not Oiv Avodah Zorah. All these were because of Bnei Seim, Gzeres Bnei Seim. Chazal do not want us to mingle with non-Jews. That would ultimately lead to intermarriage, into the total destruction of Klal Yisrael. So how do we deal, and Mumar Lechal Shabbos, regarding all these halachas? A non-frum Jew, Mechalal Shabbos Befarhesia, could we eat what he cooks? Could we eat the bread that he breaks? The bread that he bakes. So this is a big discussion in the Achronim. Source number 7, Pischei Tshuva, Kuf Yud Beis Sif Kotni Gimel. As you could notice, 7 and 8, both are Kuf Yud Beis and Kuf Yud Gimel. Sima Kuf Yud Beis in Yordea deals with Pas Akum. Kuf Yud Gimel deals with Bishul Akum. Chasnus, Ein Be'ereite, V'Ein B'Sefer Teferes L'Moshe, Sima Kuf Yud Gimel, Shekos of Pasal Mumar Shori. The Mishum Chasnus Leka, Afro Pichachot Yesoli, V'Muter Lisobitoi. If the Avera, if the Isser is because his daughter, the daughter of a mumar, could be a tzedekis. Rivka was the daughter of a mumar. Sarah was the daughter of a mumar. And there were Emma Hosseinu HaKedoshis. And therefore, the reason Chazal asked Pasakum, Bisholakum, is because of Bnei Seim, that is, it wouldn't apply to a mumar. That is regarding Pas. Kuf Yud Gimel Teferes L'Moshe. The same Mechaber says, Bishulakim, we are Choshesh by a Mumar Lechal Shabbos. And why is that? Pasakum is a Gemor Meforeshes, Lamed Vav. Pasakum is Mishum Bnei Seim. Bishulakim, the Gemara doesn't say why. And there's a stira in Rashi. Lamed Heyom in the base, Rashi says, Bnei Seim. Lamed Chesem and Aleph, Rashi says, Shema Yachileno Minim Tameim. So Bishulakim, there are two reasons why it was prohibited. Not to mingle, mechashash b'noiseyem, but also it might feed you non-kosher food. So when you deal with bread, you could assume what went into the bread. Bread is wheat and water. But bishulakum, who knows? Who knows what's in that dish? Feeds you a chunt or a soup, and you don't know what is in there. And therefore, bishulakum are also choishes macholas esuros. So by Mumar, there is no gzeres b'noiseyem, but there is the risk and the chashash of macholas esuros. And therefore, the Teferes Moshe differentiates between pas and bishul regarding Mumar lachalal shabbosos. Prima godem maram shek are machmir, and their argument is loy plug. So loy plug is a huge fundamental idea in Shas. I try to figure out when do we say loy plug and when do we say zil basar tama. I don't have a klal. There are so many different sugyas in Shas. I don't know. There are many things I don't know. There are far more things I don't know than things that I do know. I do know a bit, but there's far more that I don't know. So I don't know. I don't have a klal. When do we say loy plug? And whatever Chazal answered is across the board, whether the reasoning is relevant or not relevant, loy plug. But on many different sugyas we say zil bosatama. What is the reason? And the reason does dictate proteadin, the details of the halacha. So this is a matter of dispute which is relevant in this sugya. The Teferes Moshe says, if the gzer is mishum b'noiseyem, and Mumar has a din of a goy, but not regarding b'noiseyem. His daughters could be as pure as anyone else. But the others say, loy plug, loy plug. And if Mumar Achala Shabbos equals Mumar Avodah Zorah dinoi kegoy, then it's across the board. And if Chazal said, Pasaku Mosa, the same would apply to a Mumar Achala Shabbosos. In Minchas Osher, Shalas HaTshuvas Chelek Aleph Siman Yud, there's a very important tshuva. And I made my opinion very clear that in our day and age, the average secular Jew, whether in America or in Eretz Yisrael, does not have a din of a mumar, but rather the din of tanoikes shenishbu. And this is a huge discussion. 500 years ago, there was a big machlokes between the Radbaz and Rabbeinu Eliyahu Mizrahi. The Radbaz was the greatest gadol in Eretz Mitzrayim in Egypt. Rabbeinu Eliyahu Mizrahi was in Italy. Both were Gedolei Sfarad. And the question they were dealing with is the Karaim. The Karaim, even today there are some remnants. It was a movement that is 2,000 years old. The first Kara'i was Tzaddik. Tzaddik and Baitos were both Talmidim of, who knows? Of Antigonus Ish Socho. And it's a shocking story. In the first Perek of Avos, Antigonus Ish Socho Hoyu Oimer. Al Tiu Kavodem HaMisham Shem Salav Al Manas LaKabel Pas. Hayu Kavodem HaMisham Shem Salav Shalom Manas LaKabel Pas. We don't find this in Masechet Avos, but it's written in Avos de Reb Nosson, and the Rambam in Perusha Mishnah brings it Barichas. Two of the Talmidim of Antigonus misinterpreted what he said, and they thought he's saying, don't expect schar la'olam habo. There is no schar la'olam habo. Don't expect reward. And they were taken aback. And they said, how could it be? And that is why they left the forward. And the Rambam writes it b'derech remez in Hilchis Yesod HaTorah, that there are sugyas which you don't speak about in public. And this is an example. Antigonus Ishtoichi said one thing, Tzaddik and Baisos misunderstood, and their mistaken interpretation caused tragedy. And they left Yiddishkeit, and their hashkafa is, we don't accept Torah Shebal Peh, only Torah Shebechzav. And the Karaim are remnants of the Tzedokim, of the early Tzedokim. 500 years ago, the Radbaz writes a tshuva that the Karaim are Goyim Gemurim, like the Kutim, which was a different sect, And in Chulin Davov, the Gemara says, Lo yizazel masham ad she'osum kegoyim gemurim koivdei avodah zorah. The Radbaz says they are goyim. The Mazochi says they are Yidden. So when you hear this, you think the Radbaz was the angry one, and he was a kanoi. And the Mazochi was more embracing, more inclusive. The truth is the other way around. The question was, in their days, many Karaim did tshuva, and they wanted their way back home. The Mizrahi said, you're not allowed to marry their children because they're all mamzerim. Because for hundreds of years, Kiddushem, Kiddushin, and they never gave a kosher get. So they're all muhsik becheskes mamzeris, and we can't accept them. The Radbaz said, no, ein Kiddushem, Kiddushin. Dinam kigoyim. And therefore, when they do tshuva and they're mekabel divrei chaveres, we accept them, and we could marry their children. So it seems to be that Radbaz is the harsh one, and the Mazochi is the soft one. When you learn the tshuva in the proper context, it's the other way around. That Radbaz wanted to open a door and have them come home and embrace them and be matil and asuyin, and the Mazochi said, there's nothing we could do. They're all mamzerim. So, this is the story of the Karaim, of the early Kutim, and the Tzedaikim. And some Gedolim want to prepare a Mumar that there is Gzeres ben Isayim, just like the Karaim. But that is not right. The Karaim were a sect, a clearly defined sect. Hem ubeneim ubenesayim doir acher doir. So this dispute between the Radbaz and the Mazochi is 1,500 years after the first Tzedokim and Karaim. But a Mumar is totally individual. It's totally individual. Lo yumsu ovas arbonim, v'lo bonim ala voisam. So the daughter of a Mumar could be just as fine as the daughter of the Tzaddik Adar. So there is no Gzeres ben Isayim. So rather the Machlekes would be defining loy plug. When do we say loy plug, and when do we say... And that is the Machlekes between Teferes LaMoshe, Pischei Tshuva, and others that say there is no Gzeres ben Isayim, and others that say no. Em dinoi kegoy, dinoi kegoy. So I started to say, so that Radbaz, when he writes about the Karoim, he says, we try to teach them, and they're not listening to us, and therefore they all have a din of Mumarim and dinam kegoyim. Rabbeinu Eliyahu Mazochi says, we're trying to teach them, but maybe we're not good in teaching. We're not good in inspiring. And therefore, dinam ki Yisrael. The Chazon Ish writes, Yoredei Simen Beis. Tameya ani em yesh bedor hazeh mishi yodea lahochiach. That Rabbi Eliezer said that. B'yamei Tanoim. Tameya ani em yesh bedor hazeh mishi yodea lahochiach. So 1,500 years later, ein bedor hazeh mishi yodea lahochiach. And therefore, my opinion is, the average Chiloni has a din of a tinik shenishba and not a mumar, and therefore this shouldn't be a question at all. Almost 200 years ago, Shas Yeshuva's Binyan Tzion. Does anybody know who the Binyan Tzion was? Rabbi Yaakov Ettlinger. What is his most famous sefer? Aruch LaNer. Great. Mari Asad was a contemporary of Rabbi Yaakov Ettlinger, and they both wonder, would we still say today that Mechal Shabbos Befaresia Dinai Koivet Avodah Zorah? Many of them come to shul. Why would they come to shul if they're Oivdei Avodah Zorah, if they're atheists, if they don't believe? Reb David Tzvi Hoffman. Does anybody know who was Reb David Tzvi Hoffman? I would be pleasantly surprised if anybody does know. He was a Rav in Germany, pre-Holocaust. He wrote a Sefer Shar Tshuvas Melamed Loyal, and he writes, Kabbalah Biyodi Shamati, that the Shoel HaMeisha, Rabbi Yosef Shonatan Zon Paskin, that in America you don't say, Machal Shabbos Beferes Oivit Avodah Zorah. So he gave Americans a break. Why? They supported his koilel. Well, why would America have a different din? What do you mean in America we don't say Machal Shabbos Beferes Oivit Avodah Zorah? Because the Shoel HaMeisha knew the reality in America. Tens of thousands of Jews 100 and 200 years ago came to America. And if you didn't work on Shabbos, you died from hunger. No one would employ you. And they didn't have a rich Shver and Shviger and Bubby and Zaidi to support them. So thousands of Jews, Shabbos in the morning, you to get up early to daven with nates, they should be able to make it to the job 8 o'clock in the morning. So would we say they're like Goyim, over the Avodah Zorah? Those Yidden davened. Not only they davened, they could daven b'yichidus at home. They wanted to daven with Minyan Shabbos in the morning. They wanted to have Kriyas HaTorah. So they got up early to go to nates to make it to work. That is why the Shoel HaMeshav said, how could you say, in such a day and age, in such a reality, that a Mechal Shabbos Befresi koyvet Avodah Zorah? The Ponevezher Rav loved the South African community. Is there any bocher here that comes from South Africa? So South Africa is the most Litvische community in the world, and all the Yidden from South Africa 150 years ago came from Lithuania. The reason I like the community is when I'm there, I could say I'm the only Streimer in town. So everybody likes to be unique. So when I'm in South Africa, I could say I am unique. Lately I heard there are a few Streimers there, so I stopped going to South Africa. So the Ponevezher Rav was in South Africa, and it was publicized as giving a drosha and shul after Shachris, Shabbos in the morning. There were 500 people. After the drosha, they all left, and he was left without a minyan, and he asked, where's everybody? They drove home. Drove home. They were Lithuanians. They remembered Kvod HaTorah from Lita. And they wanted to hear the drosha of the Ponevezher Rav. And before the Ponevezher Rav left, he spoke to the community and he said, if I'm going to tell you to keep Shabbos, I doubt you'll listen to me. If I'm going to ask you to keep Ta'as HaMishpocha, I'm not sure it'll have an effect. I have one request, please. Don't intermarry. HaTorah mechazeres alachsan yeshalah. And I'm sure that the Torah will come back to this Lithuanian community. It is your responsibility to see that she has to whom to come back. So my only request is watch over your children and don't intermarry. And there was almost zero intermarriage in South Africa. And today it's a huge, huge Bal Tshuva community. Every firm Jew in South Africa, his parents or grandparents or great-grandparents are Balei Tshuva. All of them. So that was a nevuah of the Ponevezher Rav and his insight and his wisdom. So how did I get to the story of South Africa? Sometimes it's hard for me to retrace. How did we get here? So I was talking about Mechal Shabbos Befresi about Tinik Shenishbo. So yes, they came to hear the Ponevezher Rav and they drove home. Are they Goyim? Are they Goyim? They wanted to hear the Ponevezher Rav and they loved his drosha. So we're living in a changing world. And today there are hundreds of thousands of Jews that are Mechal Shabbos. I know many that are Mechal Shabbos in the word tzitzis. It's hard for them to keep Shabbos. It's not the way they grew up. But they wear tzitzis. Some Mechal Shabbos put on tefillin. Some people are Mechal Shabbos Befresi, but they keep Shabbos partially. And the wife cries by Edlukas Ener, and she asks the Kodesh Baruch Hu she should have good children. And then they drive off. So today, the vast majority of Chilonim in Israel keep something. Most of them fast on Yom Kippur. 99.9% will circumcise their children. The Gemara says if a Mechal Shabbos Befresi is embarrassed to do it before his Rebbe, he is not considered a Mechal Shabbos Befresi. So, as I wrote in great length, today they're all Tenoikes Shenishbo. Not there are no Rishoim. There are atheists, there are those that fight against everything that reflects Yiddishkeit, but they are a very, very small minority. So all the others have a din of Tenoikes Shenishbo, and they're not a Mumar, and that reflects on the halachas of Bishul Hakam and Pas Hakam and all the rest. So today we had an interesting sugya, and we started off with Esav and Yitzchak. So in this week's parasha, when Rivka conspires with Yaakov, we're going to cheat the old man, Yaakov is afraid. And Yaakov says, Ulai yemishani ovi, voisi be'enov kimitatea vehevesi elai klola veloi brocha. And Rivka says, Ulai kilalascho beni. Go and do as I told you. Many times we discussed this parasha, and I explained according to the Zohar. Yaakov Avinu doesn't need these brochas for himself. Neither does he need the b'chorah for himself. He knows Beruach HaKodesh that the b'chor will get the brochas because b'chorah and brocha are the same letters, just in a different sequence. He also knows that I am the b'chor because in Parshas Bo, HaKodesh Baruch Hu said, B'ni b'chori Yisrael, and Yisrael is Yaakov. So he needs the b'chorah to get the brochas. And why does he need the brochas? He needs the brochas because only these brochas will bring us to the finishing line, to the Geula Shalema. And that is why he needs the brochas. And Yaakov Avinu knows this is Ritzon Hashem. Everything the others did, and especially Yaakov, was not for themselves and not for their day and age. Everything, Masa Ovas Yetzira Labonim. And Yaakov Avinu is the one that paved the way to the Geula Shalema, La'orech HaGolus, and he knows that only in the merit of these brochas will Klal Yisrael be zeicher to the Geula Shalema. That is the story of the b'chorah and the brochas. So Rivka says, Olai kilalascho beni. So the Gaon, the Vilna Gaon says, Olai is 3 letters, Esav, Lov, and Yosef. Rivka tells Yaakov, a person cannot escape his destiny. My dear son, this is what will be. You have 3 tremendous challenges in life, and you will need to prevail. You're going to struggle with Esav, you're going to struggle with Lavan, and you will be tragically mourning Yosef. Go as I say. Many, many years later, towards the end of Chumash Bereshis, when Yaakov's children come back from Mitzrayim and they say, there's nothing we could do. The Mishnah HaMelech insists he wants to see Binyamin. Give us Binyamin. And Yaakov breaks down and he says, Yosef einenu, Shimon einenu, if Binyamin tikochu, olai hoyu kulono. So the Gaon says, once again, we have the word olai. Yaakov Avinu tells his children, I remember many, many, many years back, I was a young man, and the Mama Rivka told me, olai kilalascho beni. She told me, I will have 3 big struggles and nisyonos, Esav, Lov, and Yosef. I thought it's all over. I thought my tzoros all over. I endured Esav, I endured Lavan. I'm still crying for Yosef. What else? How could there be something else? The Mama Rivka told me, Olai hoyu kolono. And then in a very short time, it becomes obvious that this is not a kolola. Lefleito gedoilo. And he is reunited with Yosef, and Baruch Hashem, everything, you see, midas adin as nefach larachamim. And I say, this is my addition to the Vilna Gaon, the story of Yaakov is our story. It is not coincidence that Yaakov is called Yisrael, and we are called Yisrael. Yaakov is Yisrael, Yisrael is Yaakov, and Yaakov's story, in a way, is the story of Klal Yisrael in every generation. And in every generation, we struggle with Esav, Lavan, and Yosef. They didn't let go. Esav was a killer, and he made no secret of it. He publicly said, Yikrovu yemei evel avi v'argos Yaakov ochi. And Rivka hears, and Rivka says, Yaakov, you need to run away. Esav is with us. Who was Esav number 2? Haman. Bikesh lahashmed lahareg al abed eskol Yehudim. Who was the modern day Esav? Hitler. The final solution. So Esav has been with us throughout the generations. Lavan. Bikesh Lavan lakor esakel. When? Where? We don't find that Lavan wanted to kill Yaakov. But when Lavan says, Habonam bonai, habonas benoisai, why do we need to part? We stay together. Yaakov says that is mortal danger. That is existential danger. Habonam einam bonecha, v'habonis einam benosecha. We could be friends, we could respect each other, but We're not the same. And today's shiur, we spoke about all those gzeres of Bnei Yisrael. Yes, we need to part. I'll send you a letter here and then, maybe a WhatsApp once a day in the morning, but let me go. Because and the curse of Lavan has been with us since then. Who has Lavan number 2? We're approaching Chanukah. The Yevonim weren't out to destroy, to annihilate. In the modern age, it's the Bolsheviks in Russia, in Eastern Europe. So Esav has been with us throughout the ages. Lavan has been with us. And to our dismay, Yosef is following us throughout the ages. And that is the curse of Sinas Achim, the curse of Kinas Ish Berei Ehu, which is with us up to this very day. And many times they say, we do better coping with Esav and Lavan than we do with Yosef. When Esav befalls us, we come together, we cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we say Tehillim, we make a Yom Tanis, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Melachem Alamo. With Lavan, we learn Torah. Torah shows us the light, and Torah is the path. But we're not doing very well in coping with Yosef, with Sinas Achim. So each and every Yid in the world needs to do his utmost to enhance Avo v'Achva v'Sholem v'Reish and Nir Maras Chavereinu v'Lo Chisronam. We should see the beauty in every Jew, in each and every Jew. So let me tell you an amusing story, and you'll have a good laugh. Once the chief commissioner of the police came to visit me at home, and I told him, "Ani רוצה לספר לך כמה יהודית המדינה הזאת." This is a Yiddish Medina. So I was once on the road, and my driver made a traffic violation. Not anything terrible, but a traffic violation. And suddenly there's a loudspeaker beaming out, Mazda Kula Tamod B'tzad. So he stands. A big, tough cop walks up to his window, Rishionot, and he starts stuttering, and he says, Zeh harav, hu tzarich lagia leshiur. And the policeman tells him, Zeh harav, אז אני אתן לך קנס כפול. אתה רוצה להרוג את הרב שלך? You want to kill your rabbi, he says? I'm going to give you a double ticket. After a few minutes, he walks to my window, and he says, כבוד הרב, יש לי בת 30, שהרב ייתן ברכה, שתמצא שידוך. And I tell him, יש לי כבוד למדים. I get out of the car, I give him a bracha. So cops always come in pairs. They never come alone. And then a young cop comes out of the car, and he walks over to me. אני מחפש שידוך שהרב ייתן גם לי ברכה. And I say, maybe I could be a shadchan. You know, maybe your daughter should meet him. And then they tell the driver, go. No ticket. So I tell the chief commissioner of the police, I'm not sure they're good cops, but they're tired of Yidden. Both didn't wear a yarmulke. That's a Yiddish Medina. So, yeah, we need to appreciate every Jew. They're all precious. They're all tired. They're all holy. They're all Tinokesh and Ishbo. And if this is the way we feel, we will be Marba Ava V'Achva V'Sholem V'Reyus. So Kodesh Baruch Yerachem, and let's hear B'Soydes Toivus. So Baruch Hashem, the war up north is over, and let's hope the same will be down south, and we should only hear B'Soydes Toivus, Yeshua's V'Nechomes, HaKodesh Baruch Yerachem Alamo, and we used to be Zoicha B'Korov, to the Geula Shleima, Liris Pnei Moshiach Tzidkenu, B'Mheru V'Yomeinu, Amen.